r/Nosleep. Posted by Carl_Sefney. My cat brought a present this morning, and it's from the neighbor's house. Maybe your cat has done this a few times too: mice, birds, and even once a frog. They say it's a way of showing affection, although I hate having to be woken up with a dead animal at my doorstep, but this time it was different. Mr. Muffin was meowing incessantly at the front door, holding something strange in his mouth. I approached somewhat confused. It seemed to be some kind of, I don't know, a necklace? It was definitely jewelry. "Where did you get this, buddy?" I asked as he purred, rubbing against my legs. I kept the object at home, thinking the owner might show up. But anyway, it's really funny. I've seen cases of trained birds stealing money, rats doing the same, but this coming from a cat was new. I went to work and ended up forgetting about the necklace, but upon returning, I remembered upon seeing my neighbor, Mrs. Grant, watering her flowers in the backyard while chatting with another neighbor, Larry. She was a longtime resident of that street, but lately, she had been acting a bit strange. Some gossip said she was very ill, others that something had happened to a relative. I immediately remembered that my cat used to wander through the gardens of other houses sometimes, including Mrs. Grant's, so I decided to ask if it was hers or if she at least knew whose it was. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Grant, Larry," I greeted with a smile. "Sorry to bother you, but I wanted to ask if by any chance this necklace..." I took the object out of my pocket to show her. Upon spotting the necklace, Mrs. Grant's expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened, and her demeanor adopted a mixture of surprise and nervousness. She took a step back, almost knocking over the watering can. "Where did you find this?" Her voice trembled a little, revealing an agitation I hadn't expected. I was surprised by her reaction. "My cat brought it home this morning," I explained, watching her closely. Mrs. Grant took a deep breath, visibly trying to compose herself. "Oh, yes, I lost that necklace a few days ago. Thank you for bringing it back," she replied, reaching out to take it. "Please, dear, don't let your animal roam around my yard." Her response was strange, but I decided not to press further. I handed the necklace back to Mrs. Grant and apologized for any inconvenience caused. As she walked away, I turned to Larry, who was watching the scene with a curious expression. "Man, that was weird," I commented. "Yeah, I was talking to her before, and I don't know. There's something off. She told me she hasn't been feeling too well lately, but she seemed more nervous than usual," Larry replied, scratching his head. I went back home, still puzzled by it all, and went looking for Mr. Muffin to keep him, at least for the time being, indoors. Much to my surprise, when I went looking for him, I found that he had already left. I started calling out for him around our fence, shaking his food bowl, but there was no sign of him. I was almost desperate when I saw his silhouette jump over the wall, precisely the wall of Mrs. Grant's house. His slender, dancing silhouette appeared, and in his mouth, a new object, a golden ring with a sparkling gemstone. No way, was my cat a thief? Had I been raising a jewel thief all this time? I grabbed the ring, scolding him. "Stop that, bad boy." When I did that, he jumped, meowing, back into Mrs. Grant's yard again. Ah, darn it. I didn't think twice, I just decided to chase after him and try to prevent him from being seen. I jumped over the wall, landing softly on the well-trimmed grass. Mrs. Grant's backyard was calm with the last rays of sun passing through the clouds. I sneaked around looking for Mr. Muffin. There he was, digging something in the dirt. "Come here, you rascal. She's going to be mad at us," I whispered, trying to grab him. As I approached, however, I noticed that he had dug a hole in soil that had already been disturbed before. I got closer. "Is this where you're getting the jewels from? Does Mrs. Grant bury gemstones?" Mr. Muffin lifted his head to stare at me, his eyes seeming to say something. I knelt down beside him, helping to clear away some of the dirt. "Well, if she's burying them, it's because she doesn't want them anymore, right?" However, when I finally felt my hands touch something solid, it definitely wasn't what I expected. I began to dig, already expecting some luxurious item or something of the sort, but I came across the top of a skull, partially digested by maggots. I instinctively let go of it. "What the hell is this?" With trembling hands, I continued to dig, uncovering a familiar face, that of my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Grant. My stomach churned at the horrifying sight before me. Her body was rotting, some parts liquefying. Surely it had been there for a few days. A spine-chilling shiver ran down my spine. I stood up, my legs trembling more from panic than from the cold wind, and turned to Mr. Muffin, picking him up and ready to return home with him immediately. But before I could take a single step, an unsettling sound echoed through the yard. They were footsteps, coming from inside the house. I ran and jumped over the wall, landing on my ankle with a crack upon landing. I stifled my scream with the hand that was free, while begging Mr. Muffin not to decide it was time to meow. I quickly turned to one of the cracks between the bricks, getting a partial view of the backyard. From inside the house emerged a staggering figure, the supposed owner of the house, but I knew she was an imposter. The woman slowly approached the spot where I had unearthed the body of the real Mrs. Grant, her silhouette obscured by the darkness of the approaching night. I watched as the figure knelt beside the freshly opened hole. My hands were cold with sweat. She began to sniff. She leaned down towards that corpse and sniffed vigorously. It almost made me vomit, but I was paralyzed, unable to make any movement. I stood there, peering through the crack, as the figure continued her strange ritual. Then, suddenly, she stopped. As if she had sensed my presence, her shoulders stiffened, and she turned her head in my direction. My heart did a somersault in my chest as our eyes met in the darkness. It was as if time had frozen in that moment. I was fixated on those eyes, dark and lifeless, while terror consumed me. And then, without warning, the figure stood up and began to approach the fence where I was hiding. My entire body screamed to run, to flee from there as fast as possible, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. With a superhuman effort, I finally managed to move and ran away from there, holding Mr. Muffin tightly in my arms. I could hear the footsteps of the figure approaching, heavy on the grass, echoing in the silent night. I arrived home, locking the door behind me without looking back, and collapsing under my injured foot. I couldn't bear the pain and had to go to the doctor to have my foot wrapped, and I made sure to lock Mr. Muffin securely inside the house. I also reported the incident to the police, indicating that I had found a body in my neighbor's yard. However, the next day, they returned from the hospital saying there was nothing, and that Mrs. Grant even complained about me and my cat, warning not to let him out anymore. After a short stay in the hospital, I came home, still with a broken foot. The nurses helped me inside, and for now, I'm on the bottom floor of the house, unable to access the stairs. Everything was fine tonight, with Mr. Muffin on my lap, when he suddenly jumped, skittish, scratching me a bit. He bent over to the door and, after a few seconds, growled. Less than 5 seconds later, I heard the doorbell ring. I stood still, in silence, hearing only the accelerated beats of my heart. Another ring. "Darling," Mrs. Grant's voice sounded muffled through the door. "I heard you got hurt, I brought some soup for you." It's been 10 minutes since she arrived. Gradually her voice has become strange, to the point that now I hear a hoarse voice calling my name. I've texted Larry but he hasn't responded, and honestly, I don't even know if the police would come here for an old lady wanting to give me soup, but I'm calling them. I just wish I had kept my cat inside that day.